Hello everyone. Thank you for joining and letting us know where you're from. It would be lovely to hear how do you think AI can support and enable coaches. We're just a couple of minutes away from beginning our session. Welcome again. And as we are warming up, if I may request you to put in the text chat where you're from and what do you think and how do you think AI can support and enable us as coaches. Santosh says AI can help marketing, scheduling sessions, and certain discovery calls. Intrigued. Automate the marketing and administrative tasks. Thanks, Priya. Usha says AI is supporting coaches and clients to connect well. I'm with you, MG, trying to figure out how AI can support us. Anand says prompt the coachee on elements of awareness as action planning. Thank you. Thank you. Just about a minute to get into the session. Hearty welcome to everyone who's joining now. And as you're settling in, if you may let us know where you are from and do drop your thoughts on how do you think AI can help and support coaches. Johnny says AI can help profile matching coaches and coachees. I love that idea. Earl says AI can support in administration and communication tasks. Radha Khan seems to be agreeing with Johnny. Lovely, lovely. Keep your responses coming in. We'll just give it 30 more seconds before we get started. Kanti says AI will become the personal coach. Ananda says AI can support in bringing insights about markets, choice preferences. Okay. It is 6:31 and we are going to get started. While those of you who are joining, if I may ask you to continue adding to the text chat, how do you think AI can support and enable coaches? While we are there, we officially begin the Bengaluru Charter Chapter 2022 session. I welcome our esteemed keynote speakers and panelists. We will introduce you shortly. We are honored to have you here today. I also welcome our MC, chapter members, and guests who are here to share the virtual space with us. Please note that the session is being conducted in a webinar mode and is being recorded. We will continue to engage with you through the Q&A in the chat sections. We will be allocating CCUs for the session today, so do stay on till the end to fill up the survey. We have an action-packed agenda in front of us. We will start with our President MG Raghuraman's address to the gathering. We will then proceed to the keynote address by Harry Novic on the topic AI-powered coaching. The third agenda on the list is the panel discussion with 4 eminent leaders from various MNCs on the topic, Coaching Reimagined, an organizational perspective. We will wrap up our event with an address from our incoming president, Dr. Winston Jacob. And I will stop sharing here. And let's jump right into the session. And the opening session by MG Raghuraman, who is also known as MG. MG is a man who has worn many hats in his life, from having been a house captain in his military school in his early teens to becoming a railway officer at 22 through the UPSC exams. Nearly 22 more years as a technocrat, and then abrupt dive into IT industry, global software clients catering to US, Europe, and APAC, closing up as a CIO of Infosys for the six years. And then he's taking up the coaching in the last 6 years, and he calls that his third inning. What he loves best to be described as is a blessed and happy grandfather with 2 lovely grandchildren. MG, may I invite you to kick off the session with your opening address.
Thank you, Shanti, and welcome again to everybody who's attending the call today and the webinar. The 108 people, thank you all for joining on time. I kept looking at this word called reimagining and tried to understand what's the difference between reimagining and imagining. I realized that the magic is in the couple of letters, R and E, re. Looked up the dictionary to see that it says again imagining. Recently, I read the book by Adam Grant on Think Again, and I'm going to borrow a few things from there in this connection. I realized that we all love clarity, whether it is clarity of purpose, vision, or plan of action. We love, who doesn't love clarity? And we also say that we help as coaches or coachees to develop a clarity of mind, identify the true issue, etc. Along with this intense desire for clarity in us, the tendency, there is a basic human tendency to seek closure as well as quickly as possible. I read it somewhere as a psychologist, what they call as a binary bias. By simplifying everything, even a complex continuum, into just 2 categories. I like, dislike, yes, no. And I look back a little bit in my own recent years as I grow older, with more of my beliefs and values chaining me down and shackling me down. I realized that there have been many occasions, innumerable ones, when I'm in a conversation with people on diverse opinions and ideas, whether it be Ukraine war or abortion laws, what the Supreme Court does in the United States, and the change of religious tolerance in the country, in our own country, etc. I have seen myself taking inadvertently a clear but a simple position. I love it. For reasons unknown, I somehow seem to be wanting quick closure and taking a stand. So comforting to take that stand, which is in alignment with my current values, beliefs, and whatever. That reminds me, when I look back in my college days and like setting up a vision for myself as my career, whether it is railways or with IT. It's just like a student jumping onto a railway train, a train from Trivandrum to Guwahati, about 4 days journey. You jump into the train at Trivandrum, the next 3-4 days, you can forget about where you're going. You don't have to worry. The vision takes care of it itself. The train will take care of itself. So reimagining is, to me, the way it looks like, I guess we are trying to have the courage to relook at our own imagination, what we have set for ourselves, our visions that we have had. Do I have the courage to re-examine it with the strength of new data, new ideas, new experiences that I've had? Developing a scientist bent of mine, not exactly becoming a scientist. I see that with my daughter, who's a particle science physicist. She is a PhD, and I don't know from when on has she picked up that quality of having the humility to tell herself that she may not know and does not know, and stay curious. I guess reimagining our vision does require courage, no doubt about it, because you got to tell yourself that you do not know. Welcome, I welcome all of you to today's exciting session, where we are going to listen to some very enlightened people on how to take this forward. I welcome all of you once again to our ICF Bengaluru chapters session on International Coaching Week, where the theme will be Reimagine. Thank you, Shanti, and over to you.
Thank you so much, MG, and thank you very much for stretching the definition of reimagine for me today. And I'm hoping others have enjoyed your definition of reimagine today too. With that, we move on to the next agenda on the list. We clearly saw a mixed view on how and if AI can support and enable us coaches in the text chat in what we do better. We have today with us Harry Novic to throw some light on this topic. Harry is he's a founder and CEO of Rocky.AI, an AI-powered personal development solution. He's also the member of ICF's AI Coaching Standards Workgroup. He's a corporate veteran with experience in sales, talent development, software development, and project management in technology space. As an MBA and computer scientist, Harry was an active sales director in the Asia Pacific region for German Robotics Corporation for about 10 years. And it was during this time where he was responsible for business development and training and educating the managers to become high performers that the idea or the inspiration for Rocky.AI came about. Harry believed that AI offered an opportunity to help professionals unlock their full potential, and that AI was the way to deliver ongoing daily support to achieve the desired objectives for progression. With that intent in mind, Harry founded Rocky.AI in 2019 and is a leading contributor in the space of AI coaching and conversational chatbots. Please put your hands together as we welcome Harry for a keynote address on the topic AI-powered coaching.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm very excited to talk with you. Thank you very much for this warm introduction. And I will jump directly into the topic of AI coaching. I will share my screen for that. So as already introduced, I'm the founder of Rocky.AI and slideshow. And we created and launched Rocky to bring executive coaching to young professionals in a positive mindset and self-coaching, self-development experience with a digital coach. Let me talk about AI coaching. I want to first to set the scene for what you think about AI. You already put some comments. I want to reinitiate it from a little deeper point. So what is AI? My first sentence on it, AI itself is not a product. AI is an enabling technology. So similar like the combustion engine, the microchip, the internet, these technologies allowed many products which influence our day-to-day. For example, the engine led to cars, to trucks, the motors led to robots, the microchips led to PCs and to software that we use every day. Same with the internet. And now is the question, to what products does AI lead? Because AI itself is not a product, it's a technology. I want to go into it a bit deeper. So first of all, when you hear AI, there would be 4 words which are very important. We have artificial intelligence, we have machine learning, we have neural networks, we have deep learning. I will not go too scientific, but I just want to set the stage for those items. First of all, artificial intelligence is not a protected word. Any intelligent software could claim it's AI. Just by saying our software is mimicking human behavior, it's already AI. So AI doesn't mean much. However, when we go into machine learning, then we talk about algorithms that use data that are calculated in a way to generate predictions. Neural networks are the next level. Neural networks are actually a prediction of paths of different scenarios based on trained data to create results. And then we have deep learning. Deep learning is even one level deeper, which means it uses neural networks to create paths on multi-layers of dimensions to even create ideas and new conclusions. And these are the 4 levels of AI. Now, what are the technologies in place? Number 1 is natural language processing. So AI can be used to understand what an individual is saying and to recognize it, put it into the right context. Another example is image video recognition. So detect the face, detect the motion, detect unhappiness in his face, detect movement. The third thing, and this is very interesting for us, is sentiment analysis, which means the AI can go over a text, can go over pictures and identify what is the mood, what is the context, what is this article about, how is the person feeling. And finally, AI can be used to generate recommendations or diagnosis. So out of a lot of data and a lot of inputs, AI can detect who is the person, what's the profile, where is it coming from, where is this person leading to, what does this person need. These are 4 very important elements when we talk about AI in application. Now, how is this connected with coaching? And I put together a number of examples because you already put some ideas. Number 1 is training. AI can be used to analyze coaching conversations, analyze the coach himself, analyze behavior and results, so that with this additional data generated, a review can be generated to give recommendation what has to be improved, what has to be done next, for example. Related to that are insights. So AI can generate insights by analyzing reactions, processing data, doing follow-ups, measure engagement. A lot of possibilities here to generate new value and information. Then, and I think this is what will be most interesting for coaches, is AI to outsource processes. An example could be end user onboarding and goal setting, generate follow-ups after a conversation, generate assessments, generate motivation gamification by applying after tools after a coaching conversation. And we are there, automated coaching. Similar as our app is doing, we actually democratizing coaching, bringing it to a low cost to young professionals, and enable scaling of coaching, which allows an entry into a coaching or a post-process of coaching, or at some point, even an almost human-like coaching for those who are experienced with coaching. Now, talking about products. So if you search for AI coaching, you will find different apps, product solutions that help utilize AI coaching. One thing is scheduled coaching. So an example is Queenza. So creating a weekly activity report, making the reminders, doing the schedule, doing the management, being an assistant for coaching conversations, but also for the individuals to follow up. Ovida is an example which is processing a coaching conversation, which means the video, the conversations, the sentiments of coach and coachee are analyzed and scored, and Ovida is providing an insight of the success of the coaching conversation. Then we have interactive applications, Reimagine. These applications, they help individuals to build habits, to do the follow-up, to track their mood. There's AI behind to provide recommendations, to provide articles and tips matching to the mood of the theme of the day. And we have conversational AI coaches, usually chatbots. Our product is one of these examples. These coaches mimic human coaches, usually in a specific context. In our context, it's leadership skills, career development, and provide coaching mechanics, coaching philosophy in a chatbot conversational approach. These are just some examples of products, and many of these products are in early stage, but many of these solutions are coming out as AI enables so much possibilities for personalization and scaling. Now, what I want also to mention is, as all those different products and solutions are coming out, ICF has created a working group to define standards for AI coaching. These standards are very valuable because we are providing, first of all, good coaching practices as definition, but also using and train AI on the right ethics, on the right bias, on inclusion, and on the right mechanics of coaching. The goal of the ICF with this working group is to generate a standard, but also to create certifications for software, for products, for applications to get an AI coach badge at some point, which will help coaches, individuals, but also businesses to choose coaching products which fit very well to their needs and which apply coaching. Just quickly about Rocky.AI. It's a personal development app available on the different app stores. It's inviting individuals to do a daily mindset, self-reflection. The AI coach is asking questions and following up and listening to the individuals by providing accountability and giving also a set of ideas and tips. Thank you very much so far. I will be available later for more questions or now, but I'm hopefully already helped you a little bit to understand AI a bit more in this short presentation.
Thank you so much, Harry, for an insightful keynote, and that led us into the fascinating world of AI and how AI can come in handy for us coaches, starting from training to administrative stuff to scaling coaching. I am intrigued and curious to know more, so please stay on with us till the end of the session where we have a Q&A section. Okay, with that, we move on to the panel discussion. And I'm going to try and figure out how to share my screen. Lovely. As we warm up to the panel discussion, I'd request all of you to share your views in the text chat on how coaching needs to evolve to support hybrid working styles. And as you're doing so, please allow me to welcome and introduce Jayshree, our moderator for the panel discussion today. Jayshree, a very good friend of mine, is also the Vice President of the ICF Bengaluru Tata chapter. She's an ICF PCC coach, a psychotherapist, a facilitator, and a mentor. She's also the ambassador for ICF's group and team coaching community of practice. And if that was not enough, she's also co-founded Chrysalis, a boutique consulting firm to support individuals and organizations in their quest for transformation. Over to you, Jayshree.
Thank you so much, Shanti. And it's an absolute pleasure to moderate a really august panel today. So welcome one and all to which I'm very sure is going to be an insightful panel discussion with the stalwarts of industry here. And not only are they leading global organizations, in all my chats with them, what I have found that all of them are individually passionate and committed to coaching. not just coaching in their organizations for teams, but also as coaches themselves. So welcome everyone once again to the panel discussion. Shanti, may I request you to show up the screen share? Thank you so much. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce the panel today. The topic, as everyone knows, is the organizational perspective on coaching. How can we as coaches, as organizations, and as the ecosystem really reimagine coaching post the 2-year turmoil that we have had due to the pandemic? Are there shifts in our own thinking that are required? Are there organizations that have geared up to truly harvest the power of coaching in this changing dynamic? And what do we as an ecosystem should aspire to? I think these are some of the directions that our conversations might go into today. I'm going to introduce the panel one by one, and here is the format that we were going to follow. Once I introduce my panel members, I'm going to pose a question in turn, a unique question to each panel member, and we will have 2 rounds of that. And I know that having people of this caliber on a panel and telling them, hey folks, you have all of 3 minutes to answer the question, I know is doing an absolute disservice. But what we will do is pose 2 rounds of unique questions to each of our panel members. We will have open questions that I would love to address to all of you. Yeah. So with that, I am going to introduce Krish, Shankar, dear alumni from my campus, mentor to several of the programs that we do at our alumni network. So it's an actual personal pleasure to introduce you and welcome you to our panel, Krish. Krish needs no introduction, absolutely. Krishnamurthy Shankar, or Krish Shankar, as he is popularly known across the world, is the group head of human resource development at Infosys. In this role, he is responsible for envisaging employee experience and driving the talent and organization strategy. Krish has over 30 years of experience and has led HR functions in large organizations like Bharti Airtel, Philips, Hindustan Unilever, and Unilever. And in his wide-ranging experience in these organizations, he has personally facilitated transformation and capability development. Like I said, Krish holds a postgraduate diploma from XLRI Jamshedpur, my alma mater, and has received an executive certificate in strategy and organization from the Stanford Graduate School of Business and a doctorate in business administration from Aston University. He is also the author of Catalyze, Power Up Your People Ecosystem. It is a much acclaimed playbook for HR. So those of you from HR here, or even non-HR, even coaches, for instance, who haven't read the book, I do urge you to kind of, grab a copy today. He also blogs occasionally on LinkedIn, and he is passionate about exploring new ideas in HR and organizational development and sharing them very, very generously with the community. So welcome, Krish, and it's an honor to have you here. The next panelist that it's my absolute pleasure to introduce is Preeti DeMello. Preeti DeMello is, welcome Preeti. So Preeti is the head diversity and lead academy at Tata Consultancy Services. She's a leadership coach and an expert in positive organizational development and change. Her education includes a large, impressive bio, which I'm going to share with you. A master's in positive OD from Case Western University, adult development, the science of positive and coaching psychology at Harvard University, and leadership maturity coaching. She also holds an advanced practitioner certificate in the polarity approach for continuity and transformation, appreciative inquiry, process work, and emotional intelligence, amongst others. Wow, I'm overwhelmed just looking at looking at all of this, Preeti. At TCS, Preeti's mandate and vision is to create a sustainable culture of leadership and diversity. Previously, she launched a strategic global initiative of coaching and mentorship via leadership development intervention. This initiative has been lauded by Institute of Coaching, Harvard, and won the gold from Brandon. I think at this point, I would also love to mention that TCS received the Prism Award last year. And Congratulations to you, Preeti, and your team. She has a career experience of over 30 years over several sectors, and she personally works with, I think, integral yoga, Buddhism, and she brings together a toolkit of polarity thinking, Zen, coaching, Gestalt, positive and constructional development psychology. Preeti, I'm so inspired by what a power-packed resume you bring into this table today, not just as a coach and somebody who's enabled coaching in a large organization like TCS, but the various diverse modalities that you yourself have, kind of dived into. So welcome to our panel, Preeti.
Thank you, Jayashree. I look forward to our conversation today. Thank you.
And next, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Saurabh Saxena. Saurabh Saxena is somebody that I've admired at a distance because lucky me, I have several friends in Intuit who have constantly talked about the coaching culture there and how Saurabh personally, leads from the front in enabling coaching at Intuit. So Saurabh is the Intuit India site leader and vice president, product development for the small business and self-employed group. He's been with Intuit over 14 years, and he describes himself as Intuit's homegrown success stories, from staff software engineer to today leading a team of about 1,300 employees who deliver key innovation for their products and technology platform. Yeah. So Saurabh is result-oriented, passionate about talent development, and he's successfully built high-performing engineering teams focused on innovation and customer obsession, powering the success of small business globally. And I think I've seen in my interaction with him, his passion for not just on talent development, but also his vision for, how everybody can be a coach and the water cooler moments that enable coaching conversations on an everyday basis. And I'm going to look forward to asking you, questions and having a conversation on this, Saurabh. So Saurabh is, sorry, give me a moment. There is just so many accomplishments that Saurabh has led and product suits that I think, being a technology geek myself, I have a slight challenge in being able to relate to all of those, Saurabh. So thank you for your patience. Yeah. He leads the product suites QuickBooks Online Advancement, QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Enterprise, Point of Sale, Intuit Market, and so on, where he, along with his team, defined the strategy, vision, and roadmap, driving a 2 billion revenue for Intuit. Yeah. Welcome, Saurabh. I know there is so much more that I can share about you. I know that he has worked with Intel developing data software earlier to support Intel's factory automation and decision support systems. He holds a BTech degree from IIT BHU. And in addition to being an ardent engineering leader, he's focused on deeply understanding what it takes to have a healthy mind and body as a personal passion. So welcome, Saurabh.
Thank you, Jayashree.
And last on our panel is Ajay Soni. Ajay, welcome to our conversation today. Ajay is the Chief Learning and Leadership Development Officer, Group HR at Aditya Birla Group, Mumbai. His responsibilities include driving learning, leadership development, success management, strategic workforce planning, as well as career services for the group. He also owns the process of talent management across all the group companies. Ajay drives the senior leadership development across all the group entities, and he has been a practice leader for leadership coaching in Asia Pacific in Aon Hewitt prior to being APG. Ajay's experience includes developing leadership strategy for organizations, doing executive coaching, doing talent and leadership assessment, etc. I know in my conversations with Ajay how passionate he's been about setting up the coaching ecosystem and culture at ABG. And he's also in his prior roles consulted widely with large-scale change management, organizational restructuring, visioning, high-performance workforce, and HR transformation projects. Okay, Ajay brings research-backed thought leadership in his work, and he was associated with multiple best employer studies and top companies for leadership studies over 14 plus years that he was at Eon Hewitt before joining ABG. Ajay has a passion for sharing his learnings and point of views with the industry at large, and that's why, Ajay, we're super glad that you are here today to share your point of view with all of us. Ajay is a BTech mechanical, and he did his post-graduation MBA from Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. So that's our August panel, ladies and gentlemen. Krish, I'd invite you to come on video if it's possible. Thank you. So my first question for today is to you, Preeti. Yeah. Today, I know coaching is integrated into the DNA of TCS. I've heard personally coaches and people talk about the commitment to coaching that is there in TCS, right? Individual coaching, team coaching, group coaching, peer coaching, name it. I think TCS has harnessed the power of various interventions, right? And of course, you've also won the Prism Award last year. So while coaching today is the buzzword and, for managing talent and transition, what I would love to hear from you is, as an early proponent of coaching, especially in India, how did you create a case for coaching internally with your, with your executive management and stakeholders? It must have been, a journey of reaching where you are today. How was the start for you, and how did you build it up to where we are today?
Well, it's a great question, and it's a very valid question, and it's a journey. You're absolutely right. So when we started, this is about 8 years back, the first thing really was to start talking about coaching as, let's understand what coaching is. Now, coaching as a term can have various different nuances and meanings in different parts of the world. In the Indian context, at that point of time, coaching really meant somewhat of remedial and support and help, which meant that if there was a leader who was assigned a coach, the first question that might come up is, what have I done? Why do I need this help? What do you see? So creating awareness about coaching, beginning to talk about it as a developmental process, looking at it as something that we need to integrate as a competency in our everyday behaviors, was possibly the first place that I looked at. And my objective really was, I wanted everybody to understand that coaching, mentoring, counseling were not synonymous. And I know this is sort of at scratch, but 8 years back, I do believe that the level of maturity vis-a-vis understanding coaching within the larger Indian corporate ecosystem was fairly low. So this became the first piece. Moving on from there, equally important to talk about clear purpose. Why are we doing what we're doing? Why have we embedded coaching in leadership development and talent development? Why is coaching a new way of approaching our own learning? And how do we value it vis-a-vis business results? How do we evaluate vis-a-vis our everyday behaviors? How do we value it vis-a-vis client interactions? This was important because we needed a common goal and a collective voice, without which, it's really about, coaching is expensive, right? Let's not forget that. So we are then pushing water uphill. We are saying, here is what we are out to do, or here's what I'm out to do, and please buy into my agenda. Personally, I don't have, I don't enjoy the expression buy-in. I also don't enjoy the expression, what's in it for me? And yet at the same time, I do know that the best process to buy in is to help people understand and help everybody see the validity and be ready to be challenged. Be ready to experience that that dynamic around, is this okay? Is this not okay? Why should we do this? So on and so forth. Because once we've established clear benefits, be it in leadership style or business results, or as I said, client interactions or team cultures, then the process becomes much, much simpler. It's also important, and I think as a sort of bringing it all together, I would say it's important to recognize that it's time, and this is where how we've moved away from this warm and fuzzy idea of coaching. to say, let's have a conversation and all of us feel better, to saying, here is a specific outcome that we are out to get. And it needs to be anchored in structure and process and outcomes and measurement in reporting on an ongoing basis. So there has to be tangible. And when coaches, who are usually eventual sponsors, start seeing and experiencing the interdependence of self and other, observing their role in a system, their lens starts to alter, and they start linking their thoughts, their mindsets, their behaviors with results, with impact. So I would say it's like bringing a whole system together, and this whole system has many moving parts. And the best way to do it is with structure and with a plan in mind. And then, of course, achieving results and then amplifying them so that you can do the next round and the next round. That's been our journey within the organization.
Thank you, Preeti. So what would you say, if I had to quickly ask you, for an organization that is looking to start coaching today and wondering how to get the support of their management? In hindsight, based on your experience, what's the one nugget of wisdom that you would like to give them?
Jesh, it's hard to give one piece of advice on this, but I would say, if I was to build on what I previously said, is recognizing that not everybody has the same understanding of what coaching is and what is the value of coaching. Bringing people together to have a collective conversation, building a common agenda, and thus sponsorship potentially is the most powerful thing that needs to be done before we start any initiative, not just coaching, but specifically for coaching, I would say even more so, because, coaching can refer to sports, coaching can refer to academic programs, and thus bringing in the culture of the place that we live in and saying, all right, how does it relate? So some organizations will respond really quickly because they understand it, but some organizations, you might need to have a different conversation altogether. And then I would say the second piece, which would be 2 nuggets instead of 1, is have a very structured plan. Know how to measure, know how to report on ROE or ROI, show value for money, show business results, because there are business results, and give equal emphasis to the qualitative as you do to the quantitative when talking about coaching, because sometimes behaviors are visible, but you can't really count on them and show them as stats till much later. So have that in-process measurement and outcome-based measurement. Those would be my 2 pieces of advice to anybody starting off.
Thank you, Preeti. I think what I'm hearing is that it needs to be a multi-pronged strategic approach, and I'm going to move on from there to Saurabh, because I think what Saurabh also had shared in our conversations earlier, I think lends itself beautifully to this thought. So Saurabh, I know that at Intuit, you really built the case for coaching internally, and coaching has garnered widespread support, and you also demonstrated impact, right? And I've heard so much about the culture of coaching and mentorship that has been built, that even your organizations, like Preeti said, they are the evangelists for your coaching program. They really, kind of talk about it, and there are stories that are built around the impact of coaching. So, and you also mentioned in a conversation that at Intuit, everyone is encouraged to think like a coach from day one. And that's the spirit of, at Intuit. So I'm eager to kind of understand, how have you integrated coaching so seamlessly, right? Is there a template that you have, building on what Preeti shared, that you can give for leaders and coaches in their audience who wants to kind of embrace this mindset in the organization?
Absolutely. And first of all, thanks a lot for inviting me, and super excited to be part of this panel. There are a couple of thoughts, Jayashree, that I would share in terms of the template. I think the first one is, it's very important to integrate coaching very deeply into the organization, in the mindset and also in the culture. And we need to be very, very thoughtful about offering it at probably all the diverse levels and also to the diverse people. I always believe that we need to be absolutely passionate about the DEI when you are talking about thinking about the coaching in your organization. Now at Intuit, our culture of coaching is very deeply embedded in our leadership philosophy, where we truly believe that everyone is expected to be a leader, regardless of your role, your designation, or whether you have people reporting to you. And all this vision was kind of shaped by a lot of leaders at Intuit, starting from our founder, Scott Cook, to Bill Campbell, to Brad Smith, and now Sasan Gudrazi. And when I say everybody is expected to be a leader, it's about creating an environment where people can do the best work of their life. And coaching plays such an integral role in creating that environment. In fact, we have crafted a leadership playbook, and this is open to everybody in the organization to learn from it. Personally, I believe that coaching can very effectively work in any organization if we have a deep belief in people's greatness. And in fact, we integrate coaching in our goal setting, in our year-end conversations. And also, it's kind of all the conversations are very focused towards the growth and towards unlocking the potential. Now, Jeshri, as you started your conversation talking about a lot of things have changed around us in the last few years. So just want to touch base on that. If you look around, we have a very diverse workforce today, and we are learning in a new way of working in a hybrid model. So at Intuit, we strongly believe that senior leaders and managers are very key to the organization growth, and we invest a lot on them to unlock the potential for themselves and also for their teams. So just wanted to share 3 examples of what we are doing as an organization. I think the first one for managers, we offer a virtual coaching for all the managers, and it's a very scalable program. It's available in multi-geo, in multi-language, but the theme or the kind of concept behind this is that it helps managers to understand that when you are coached, what value it actually brings to you, so that you can unlock the potential for your own team. The second one we have is about, we have internal manager accelerator program. And interestingly, manager as a coach is kind of a module in that. We truly believe that you provide the teaching when it is required, but you always lead with the coaching when it's possible. Now, at the senior leadership, we have more kind of a niche coaching program where we try to pair a senior exec with either internal or external coaches. And whether you are new exec to Intuit or you are seasoned executive and trying to learn into a new area, I think these programs really help us to get all the support that we need. One thing that I really love about this program is that when we engage with the external coaches, they are completely onboarded to Intuit culture and the business context, because then you're not coaching just the person, you're coaching the person in the context of business, in the context of environment that they're operating into. So what's the outcome of this? The outcome of this is that a lot of us as a leader becomes a very big advocate of coaching. We go all out, we share our success stories, we share on our experiences on coaching and mentoring. And finally, the whole organization is aligned towards coaching is really an investment for the growth. Now, Jeshri, if I want to summarize this whole thing, I think at Intuit, the coaching culture was not built just by one program. There was a series of initiatives. We embedded coaching mindset in probably every single day conversation, getting all the leaders on board, integrating it into our talent practices, and talking about it all over the place has really helped us Intuit set up its place and create this awesome culture awesome coaching culture. Now at Intuit, leaders as teachers are always celebrated. We recognize people who helps others to be successful. And in fact, one of the top prestigious award at Intuit is named after our former CEO. It's called as Bill Campbell Coach Award. Now this is a template, kind of a template that we use at Intuit to drive our mission of powering prosperity around the world by creating an environment where probably world's top talent can do the best work of their life. So I hope I can cover some of the thoughts around that.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. And I hear what you say, and I know that not only do you have coaching at Intuit for your senior leaders, middle management, separate program for women leaders to kind of, and part of your DEI initiatives. And I hear you're also looking at coaching for entry-level folks, and due course. And I also, in our conversations, you've talked about the manager as a coach, how that is really very critical to sustain the coaching culture. And with that, I think I'm going to move to Ajay because Ajay, I think this is exactly what you and I had been talking when we had met, right? In terms of the creating an advocacy for coaching, and how did you go about that, creating that first pool of advocates for coaching and enabling managers as coaching. You bring, Ajay, the best of both perspectives, your experience in leadership consulting and coaching, in our previous in Aon Hewitt, and also now in your role, leading coaching initiatives in one of the largest conglomerates in India. Right? And in our conversations, Ajay, I've been inspired by the systemic manner in which you kind of integrated coaching into 13 different businesses, working with so many different CHROs and mindsets and culture. So for those who are in the audience who are kind of daunted by the process, right? Is there a way to kind of start small, build that advocacy for coaching, create a pool of managers who can be coaches, and then sustain that momentum year on year? So how does one go about doing that?
So if we kind of go back to the year 2014, we had one or two coachings going on across, maybe one or two coaching going on in every business of Aditya Group. We'd had already an initiative in 2008 where we tried to create ABG coaches. We did. However, because those coaches did not really coach much, that fizzled out. And so in some ways, coaching had not that great kind of flavor there. So from that situation today, if we see our 1/3 of the C-suite, which is CEOs and CXOs, have undergone coaching, formal coaching with external coaches. Our entire mid-management has been through a 9-month initiative of Foundations of Coaching. And we currently have 162 ABG coaches who are certified through a 9-month-long process. And they are currently coaching 200 high potential employees in the group. So how did we reach here? I think it was about starting small and starting with only transition coaching. So in 2014, we initiated this program called Make Your Mark. And we said, okay, we will coach those people who are in senior positions, either first-time CEOs or first-time factory managers or first-time CXOs, and we'll provide them coaching for transition. And with 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, it kept building, and it started to prove itself when these people were viewed differently in the businesses. It started to get a positive name. People started saying, this person is moving in new, we need transition coaching. And so it started to gather momentum. As that happened, we thought of creating that foundation of coaching program like Saurabh talked about, manager as a coach. We created that and rolled out for the entire mid-management, 3,500 people. That got very positive feedback. We, in our engagement survey, got improved results on learning and development as feedback from our people. Very qualitatively, we got very rich feedback. And so we moved to then ABG coach program and started creating ABG coaches. One after the other, these coaches started to not only make a difference in the lives of their coaches, but also they experienced a change in themselves as individual professionals. And so today I would say we are on that journey of having a coaching culture, development culture at ABG. This journey I don't think ever stops, but yeah, we are well on our way in that.
Thank you, Ajay. And I remember in our conversation you talked about of how you kind of went into one unit and trained the entire senior management there to be internal coaches, and then measured the transformation in that unit over a period of time. And that kind of, inspired the, length and breadth of the organizations to kind of truly look at the impact of coaching. Is there something on that? I'm sure our audience would love to hear your approach.
So 3 pillars: Make Your Mark, transition coaching, foundations of coaching, 3rd pillar ABG coach. When we were working on the 3rd pillar ABG coach, and we would get different senior leaders from different businesses, 13 different businesses, like we said, and we would kind of, get them to become coaches. That result was very kind of spread out across the length and breadth of the group, and group as such is so large. And so in one of my conversations with a partner, what came out was, why don't we go and create an impact in a small setup? So we went to a cluster in central India, cluster of 3 different large plants, and the entire senior leadership, we took them through coaching certification process. Over those 9 months, these coaches, they learned how to be coaches. They coached, each person started to coach 5 to 10 people. That started to make big difference. At the beginning, we said, okay, together as leadership team, what difference will this coaching culture bring? We created certain business metrics, whether it is yield or whether it is productivity or whether it's safety or employee engagement. We said these are the metrics which we'll measure before and after. And we saw some, positive results over a period of 1 year. Employees were happier with their development, and that started to create a big impact. And then we started taking, a leadership team at a time in different kind of clusters across that group company. Very interesting and useful initiative that.
Thank you, Ajay. I'm sure that it's a very useful technique that many of our people in the audience are going to take it back to their organizations. So Krish, I have a question, which is the elephant in the room, which I think you're hearing all of our panelists speak, which is there is so much of a case for building internal coaches. And I know in our audience, we have several external coaches who are empaneled, right? And in your book, Krish, also you've talked about organizations should work with coaches who know the context of the organization, who buy into the vision and the culture of the organization. And I know that's something that, Saurabh also had spoken in our conversation. So, so as an external coach, I have seen that a lot of the times organizations have a tendency to hire coaches who have worked in their industry or have some kind of a domain expertise. And here we are talking about internal coaches who have truly made an impact. So, so what is your take on this? I mean, how do external coaches like me work with organizations and yet know the context and support externally when there is so much of a case made for internal coaches? What do we do?
My God.
I know. And I'm giving you the tough question.
But you know what? I think you've got people here, Preeti, Ajay, Saurabh. I mean, they've got phenomenal experience, and I think they've shared some fantastic stories of how coaching has really thrived in those organizations. But when I step back and look at it, I think, I just want to define this a little broader. It's not just coaching. It's like all kinds of helping relationships. Yeah, and there are all kinds of them. And I think there are certain kinds which fit with internal coaches, and there are certain kinds which really fit with external coaches. Yeah, and let me take a minute to look at it. I mean, take an organization like a TCS or an Infosys or even Aditya Birla. It's a huge organization. Yeah, 300,000, 400,000 people. And the levels of coaching or interactions needed at different levels are so different that you may need different types of approaches. Yeah. So I think we cannot broad brush it. We got to really look at what is needed and try and see how it can be done. Yeah. But let me start with the 2 or 3 common types, of where I think leaders need help and make a difference. I think the first thing is, Ajay mentioned transition coaching, people taking on new roles, people in leading senior leaders in a business which is under a lot of pressure or they need to improve as a unit. Now, when these kind of issues are there, what kind of coaching really helps? Yeah. And I think, if in my framework, I look at 4 things to really make things successful for anybody to be successful in that job. The first one is you got to get the stakeholders together and say, what is the outcome needed? What is the jobs to be done by this individual? Yeah. This individual is the head of, let's say, a unit. What are the key challenges that we want this person to solve in the next 2 years? So that needs alignment. And most cases of people failing is because there is no such alignment of what is really needed to be done in that role. The second thing is, once you've defined that, the second thing is, what is the role allowing this to happen? Yeah. there are people, sometimes roles are not empowered. Sometimes there is like, there is like different functions have different thing, and there is need for some tension, but sometimes just discussing it, saying, is this role empowered enough to do what we want? What should we do? Will solve half the problems. Then comes the individual. Now we've got the role, the job to be done clear. We've got the role. Then comes the individual and say, okay, what we need to help this individual to really be successful. And the last part is the team. Not only the individual, because the individual works in a team. And how does the team need to work? Are there changes in the team that you need to really complement or support this individual? Now, this I think is a very integral to making any business leader successful. Yeah. And to do this, if you get an external leader, it's not going to be that easy, because this needs a lot of contextual discussion. This needs people who can really get leaders together to make things happen. Yeah? So I would say these kind of discussions, you need good internal leaders who are able to make, and that's where good leaders who have the kind of skill of facilitating issues, getting people together will make good coaches. There are also certain areas where you probably need external coaches, yeah, where people have issues or not, I wouldn't say issues. People need to make big transformation in their own personal styles of leadership, yeah, and therefore those kind of things, I think external leaders really help. So I think that's there. Wherever we do a long program, and Ajay spoke about it in Aditya, Birla, wherever you have a large program, let's say, women leaders program, or I want to do my top 100 leaders program, where the coaching is much more generic, longer term, helping people kind of discover themselves and their strengths, then I think external coaches help, because they bring a new perspective. They kind of, ensure that they are not biased. They help. I think lower down the organization, I think here lots more mentoring helps. I think more than coaching, lots more contextual help. And there is this blurred definition, but I would say contextual help, connecting to others is what helps at the lower level. And there I would call it more like mentoring type. You can ask the coaching type of questions, but it's much more mentoring. So yeah, I think to answer your question, there are different solutions that you need to really make things work in large organizations. Internal coaches are very good, because wherever there are internal issues and things to be done, I think they can do that. But they need to have the gravitas, they need to have the skill to do it. You can't train 10 people and say you're internal coach, that needs to be there. And that's why senior leaders in their roles who build the coaching skill can be much better people than others. Of course, external leaders bring in a perspective for different types. And that's where we should design and plan and use them. So I'll stop here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Krish. I know that was a curveball to you, but I think I love, it's very aptly put. I love the perspective that you shared. And so I'm going to address my second question to you first, Krish, which is I'm building on this, which is that in your book, you talked about how, the ratios in which we focused on in terms of talent management, from learning on the job to learning from others, and how that needs to shift as we move to a new workspace. And I'm hearing you also talk about saying how, as organizations, it can't be looking at coaching in silo. You need to supplement coaching with, where required, mentoring and other forms of people development, right? So if you have to really, think aloud now, and how can coaches help power up the people ecosystem, right? Is there a case for a kind of blending silos and say, hey, there are times when I have to be a coach. There are times when people need a nudge or people need mentoring. And how do these ecosystems kind of come together to power up the people ecosystem?
Thanks. I think, firstly, I wrote that book basically through lots of discussions with people. It's not only my thinking, but lots of leaders I've worked with, primarily in Unilever and many other companies. So therefore, these are lots of insights from others. Yeah, and it'll be great if you can all read a book, and if you like it, let me know how you like it. I think the point that there are two parts here. Yeah, one is this learning from others. How is it changing? Traditional leaders, Ajay, Soni in his old avatar and Aeon would would talk about this 70-20-10. That was like the formula that everybody spoke, saying, listen, this is how it is, etc. But I think what's happening, there are two or three things. One is the technology is changing phenomenally. The way businesses are being run is also changing. The elements of business are changing in many industries, not in all, but in many industries. And when you're and we just heard the keynote speaker talking about AI and coaching. One would never have thought coaching is so much about what do you call this highly engaged kind of human interaction. Now you're saying I'm going to have AI in it. See how things are changing. There's going to be so that's how things are changing. Now, to do that, I think if you keep saying that, I'm going to learn on the job, it's not going to be easy, because you got to learn from new sources. Yeah, you got to learn out of the cocoon in which you're working. So you got to say, okay, who do I talk to outside my industry? Who do I talk to in the technology area? What kind of programs can I do outside? So I would say that the 70-20-10 would probably move to 50-30-20, that you probably have to spend more time actually attending courses on newer things that's happening, probably connecting with people who are outside the industry or outside what you're doing in technology, and see what is there. And that's where I think this learning from others becomes very important. The second part of your question is, how do you really make it a thing in any organization? Is going back to my earlier point, is every level needs a different type of what I would call as helping relationships. Let's take fresh management trainees who join a company. What do they need? I mean, you start coaching them may not be the right thing. I think they need a lot more mentoring. They need a kind of somebody who's talking to them, telling them the ways in and out, etc. So therefore, a strong mentoring system at that level is phenomenal. Ajay would remember from our old days in Unilever, when we had management trainees, they used to have a guide and a mentor. I think we used to, and that was phenomenal, because they helped the leaders and they built strong relationships with them. I think mentoring at that level is important. You will have various other programs that you build where you can have coaches. You can have either internal trained coaches or external coaches coming in through certain key transition areas or key leadership areas for people. But the most important thing is to, as Preeti had mentioned, is make all your leaders a coach. How do you train them to be coaching in their style of leadership? And this needs some work. It's not going to be easy. But if you train them to be coaches, to be in their own style of leadership, then I think you will probably get much more done. Yeah. So as organization, we've got to look at all of this. It's not just going, sometimes just putting external coaches at senior leaders doesn't work, because firstly, they have to be interested. Many of them do tick box. They say, it's good, I'm going to have a cup of tea. They don't do enough work. So I don't think we should really go with anything that is a fad. I would suggest work on it. It'll take time. Build leaders as coaches in the style of coaching, in the way they kind of lead. They should be coaches. Have various other setups like mentoring relationships at different paths. Career coaches, mentors are we call career coaches, but they're actually mentors. So that mentoring relationship at the lower level is very, very important. And then you bring in external coaches wherever you need in key transitions.
Thank you so much, Krish. And I am, going back to what you started off with, which is that we really need people in the organization who kind of get people together to make that internal discussion and make it happen. And I think, I'm going to move to you, Ajay, because I remember in our conversations, what you had said was that how does the coach and the CHRO truly partner to support each other? That's why it's so important for the CHRO to have the pulse of the organization, to know exactly where is coaching intervention needed, what kind, and where is mentoring, and but the onus is also on the coach, the external coach who's partnering in with the CHRO, and the role that the coach needs to play in kind of successfully navigating tricky contexts, like for instance, of talent that does not realize that they're ripe for coaching, right? We had a question on the chat that somebody said, what about people who don't believe they need coaching? And that's a tricky navigation that the external coach needs to do along with the CHRO and partner with them and work with them. And you were talking about that in our conversation earlier of what is that responsibility that external coach also should bring onto the table.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And somebody in the chat also put about laggards. What do you do about laggards? Now, laggards of two kinds. One is somebody not performing, then you put them on performance improvement plan. Don't do coaching, but put them on performance improvement plan, manager supports, and you improve. So that's the other way of doing it. Laggard, if you take them as hard nuts in my kind of parlance, successful leaders, but very difficult to change. In my coaching experience, both when I was a consultant and now here over the past 7.5 years, there is a rule of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. I'm sure all of you would have experienced, all of you would have coached many people, your experience, but my experience is 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 1/3 people change beyond your imagination. 1/3 people change to the extent that you think they will, and 1/3 don't. Now, that is the formula. I was with, about a couple of years back, before the lockdown happened, I was with one of the most popular coaches across the world. I won't take his name. So I posed him this question about what do you do when you meet such coaches who are hard nuts? And he said, I don't coach them. And I said, okay, that advice doesn't work for me because, well, I have an organization here, right? And these leaders are leading battery of people, hundreds of thousands of people. And so if they need coaching, they need coaching. They're here as reality. So this 1/3 that's where the whole organization setup becomes important for the external coach. And to leverage for people like me, people like the CEO in whose business that coachee is, the CHRO, because CHRO knows the pulse of the organization. CHRO knows how does the CEO see this coachee, how does his or her people see this coachee, and therefore leveraging them so that the signals from the CEO, from the CHRO go to the coachee to say the importance of the change from organization context is very important. So leveraging that, if we leverage that infrastructure well, and especially the CHRO, then from 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, your success rate can be 95%. So we've done Make Your Mark, the transition coaching for about 100 people. And there are about 2 or 3 who are in that category of no or very limited change. Everybody else, otherwise, 95 to 98% are on the other side where they have seen, shift to the extent at least expected, if not beyond. And so leveraging CHRO and for the external coaches to establish that rapport, take them into, trusted kind of environment and utilize them to help the coachee also move in the right direction is very, very important in my view, Jayshree.
Thank you, Ajay. And I can see that the chat has been buzzing, and I'm thank you so much to Preeti, to Harry, and everyone else on the panel who are actively responding to the chat. I don't know if we will have time to do justice to all the questions, but Preeti, I'm going to address the next question to you, which is that, and I think even Rachel has asked it on the chat and a few others, which is that organizations are going through so much change as part of the pandemic that we have gone through, and with the new changing talent landscape, how do we engage and retain talent landscape, the hybrid nature of workspaces, I think we have not seen such constant changes as we are seeing today. So how would you want coaches to truly partner with organizations? What is the future of coaching in this context that we are not at there, but coaches need to kind of build their own capacity to support?
So, wearing my ICF hat at this point of time, I have to say that it's important for us to recognize that even ICF has now got a specific vertical, what we call a family group called coaching in organizations. And thus, this has become an extremely pertinent space to attend to. Coaching is no longer about just working with a leader and moving on. It's really about an entire system, and we need to be able to value that. That includes and absolutely includes not only the context that the organization holds, the objectives of the organization, their future pathway, etc., but also the context of the world at large and how people are feeling, how are they responding, what's really happening. So to Rachel's question, for instance, on the Great Resignation, now that is beyond organizational context. Just might have different organizations have different ways of working with it. Advice somehow feels very limited, but maybe what I can do is share my own experience and say what I do believe we should do. These times have been an example or a possible culture test for organizations. If an organization has an integrated, inclusive, communicative, constructive culture, then it will show up in how the organization performs during difficult times. And coaching plays an incredibly important role in that whole process. Coaching is is one certain element of what builds the culture. And I also have to say that a lot of times when I'm working with establishing the nuances of coaching culture, I would say it's really beyond looking at competencies that we define in coaching as critical, and looking at some of them and saying this is actually about culture at large. So psychological safety, attention to well-being, recognizing the interdependence between mindset and behavior and performance, beginning to see that how we communicate, our quality of rhetoric and dialogue actually impacts how people feel and think afterwards, how we give feedback. So really breaking it down into verticals and horizontals that speak to the minor nuances that define the changing times and how we need to show up. So a good way to do that, personally at TCS, we've got about 250 internal coaches at this point of time. We have very shortly, in the next couple of days, actually, we'll have an ICF accredited program that we run internally. Our focus is most certainly on building a community of coaches internally, alongside with a focused approach to external coaches, as Krish mentioned, and that's very true. Who are you offering the services to? And what kind of coaches would they need? So internal coaches understand the context. External coaches understand the context and more. They also understand the external world. And alongside building this ability for every member of the organization, and that might sound ambitious for large organizations like my own, but that continues to be an ongoing pursuit, is bringing in the language of coaching, which to me is amongst the most telling aspects of culture. When we can speak to each other in a manner that is more question-based, where we can hold space for each other, where we can listen to each other really, really intently, where our actions can be intentional. All of that, I believe, will contribute to the hybrid nature of the workplace, will contribute to the changing times, will contribute to working across generations, which I know is also another very interesting dynamic that exists across organizations that are certainly represented here on the panel.
Thank you for that perspective, Preeti. And I think, what I'm also taking away is that, like you rightly said, there is a shift that even within ICF that is being made. And I know even platforms like BetterUp or others are also making that shift where not only there is pure coaching, but there's also BetterUp Care and, other forms of support. And even leaders today are called upon to have greater emotional intelligence and connect and rapport with their teams like never before. And so with that, I have a question for you, Saurabh, because you do wear several hats. You're a coach yourself, like Preeti and Ajay, and also, you have set up the coaching system in Intuit. So from your perspective, how should we as coaches, internal or external, as any stakeholder in this ecosystem of enabling people, how should we reimagine coaching going forward? Based on your experience, what would you want us to take back as part of this ecosystem that we are having a conversation today?
Thanks, Ashley, for the question. Let me give a perspective from a coaching point of view, because over the last 10 years, my own perception about coaching has taken a completely U-turn. So Jashri, as you shared earlier, I played multiple roles in the past and have been in this organization for quite some time. In this process, I was lucky to get interacted with several coaches throughout my career, and also got some time to get more coached about how this coaching overall works. Gained some skills as a coach and kind of developed a very deep passion towards the coaching. One thing I think that really worked in the organization is that we all need to make sure that we use a similar language about coaching and everybody understand what coaching means. So for us, coaching is all about unlocking the potential and maximizing the performance. It is all about advancing the people goal and their potentials. And one important thing for coaching to be successful in any organization in this new world is as a coachee, you have to be self-aware. You have to be vulnerable. You have to have a learning mindset. And I think one of the panelists talked about the mindset issue that we had in the organization. So I just want to share my personal story around that. It's about 10 years back. I was a frontline manager and came out from a really bad presentation. And after a couple of days, my manager reached out to me asking, Saurabh, would you be okay to have an external coach for stakeholder management and presentation skills? And the first thought in my mind is, really? One bad presentation and you want somebody external to come and coach me now? The second thought in my mind was, as a frontline manager, this is such a basic skills. What people will think if they know I'm being coached by external coach? So I started, finally I said yes, and I started working with the coach, and then I realized that my perception was completely wrong. I was just blown away with my first interaction with the external coach. Because what she did is that she talked about all the strength, and she helped me understand that how I use those strengths to fix the opportunities that I'm working with. She was brutally honest, direct, and as there was a conversation about internal and external, she got a lot of external perspective to me. But every single interaction with her, I felt an inch taller. And based on her coaching, I went very broad in my organization. In fact, I shared with everybody in terms of team I'm working on, these are the coaching areas. I want you to all observe me and give me the feedback about that. And since then, the life has changed a lot personally for me. The second one, in terms of, I think if you look at the broader organization, I feel the coaching is really different than the usual feedback outback that we have in many organizations, because feedback is always about looking back. It's always about telling and creating the awareness, while coaching is always about forward looking and creating the accountability. I think the other thing I want to share is when I looked into all the amazing coaches, mostly external ones, I found something very unique in all the coaches. They were amazing coaches themselves now itself and probably before as well. So they all were self-aware. They all used to seek ideas. They all used to make sure that their ideas are part of the solution. And they are very vulnerable to the people that they are coaching for. So one specific thing, Jashri, that I would love to share, especially in the new context, is why became, as we are getting into the hybrid model, it's extremely important that as a coaches and as a coachee, we are extremely vulnerable to each other. So I just want to share an example that before the pandemic, I used to run an outback called as Follow the Leaders, which was all about kind of 5 to 6 employees will join me for a day. They will attend all my meetings, essentially more in terms of just as a listener. And then after every meeting, we used to do a debrief to talk about where I can share my learnings in terms of how we could have run this meeting better. What I was amazed is that while it all started with me sharing learnings with them, but the kind of reverse mentoring that happens to you as a coaches is just amazing. In fact, I was in one of the calls, Jashri, where the call didn't went well. And during my debrief with the team, I realized that I told the teams that, hey, the main reason why this call didn't work well is because there was a fear of, there was a lack of trust. And this employee who has been with us for kind of 2 months, fresh out of college, gave me a piece of advice saying that, hey, Saurabh, why it's so hard? Why can't you just go and tell this person, why can't you be so direct? And I was just amazed with the simplicity of the thought that this person had. And since then, I've been following this advice. The last thing I would add is that as a coaches, a lot of things around us are changing. I think Krish talked about the kind of tech that is changing. In terms of the talent, we talked about kind of the talent that we are hiring right now, the great recognition. I think as a coaches, it's very important for all of us to be up to speed with the ecosystem. And I love the talk about how AI is going to help all of us. So I think getting hands dirty in terms of understanding very deep how AI is going to help is going to be very critical.
Thank you for putting everything that we have discussed today into context, Saurabh. I'm really grateful you did that, because I think we have such beautiful questions on the chat, and we really running out of time to address all of them. And here is a live open ask. I know I haven't asked of you earlier, but this is an ask that we have a lot of questions. Would it be all right if we connected offline with you and got your responses on this, and we would love to share it on LinkedIn for all our attendees today who kind of have these questions, but we're not being able to answer them. This is a request, so if we can, I'll connect with you offline and we will share it. And for all of us who are on the call today, Shanti will be sharing our social media handles later. And there are such beautiful questions here, and it is unfortunate we don't have the time to answer them today, but we will have our panelists respond to them and we will share it on a social media feed. Thank you so much. Preeti had to drop off suddenly because there was some personal emergency at work that she got a message about. So, but thanks to Preeti, Krish, Saurabh, and Ajay, all of you for being here today, being your completely authentic self and sharing your journeys and nuggets of wisdom. And we will be back to you for more. This was just a teaser, I think, for more that you can offer our audience, and we will connect with you offline and bring those nuggets of wisdom to our participants soon. With this, Shanti, I hand it over back to you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Jayashree, and thank you so much, participants, panelists. I mean, wow, the panel got me thinking and introspecting on what all reimagining future can actually hold for us coaches. And I'd like to capture this moment and all the learning we have right away so that we don't miss anything. Next in the text chat, you will see a Menti link. I'm going to pull up the text chat and put the Menti link here. So you can either click this link or you can go to menti.com and use the code 7934986. I repeat, 7934986. The first question up is, what's that one word that describes the session today? Insightful, honest, reflective, awesome, fantabulous, enlightening, perspectives, brilliant. I'm loving what I'm seeing. Please carry on 10 more seconds before we move on to the next question. Thought-provoking, grounded, profound, honest, impactful, lovely, reflective. With that, we move on to the next question. What is your one key takeaway from the session today? What is your one key takeaway from the session today? I realized I've not been sharing my screen. Apologies for that. Here comes what you've all been sharing with us. AI coaching. As a coach, you have value to show. Coaching is quintessential. Coaching is a journey. Everyone needs a coach. I'm with you. Internal coaching, focus for the organization, 70-20-10 approach. Lovely, lovely. Keep your responses coming in as we move on to the next section. As we begin to wrap up a session, may I invite ICF Bengaluru Charter Chapter's incoming president, Dr. Winston, to provide the closing address. Dr. Winston is a lifelong action learner and is keen on sharing his knowledge with others across the globe. He serves as a board member with over 14 organizations. He facilitates executive management mentoring and coaching in India and globally. And he looks forward to inspire, empower, motivate people to be better citizens. Let's put our hands together for Dr. Winston as he gets ready to inspire us. Over to you, Dr. Winston.
Thank you, Shanti. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Harry for the very enlightening opening address. He's given us a perspective of the 4 levels of artificial intelligence that we need to consider. And it was also complemented by Krish. I'd like to thank Preeti, Krish, Saurabh, and Ajay, and also to thank the team. Thank you all very much for this very, very enlightening evening we have had, really championing artificial intelligence. From this great session we've had today, we've seen the importance of human intelligence. All human beings gathered here have a genius within, and we are all called upon with a future that's going to rock the world. We are going to see a complete change. Robots coming in. Artificial intelligence has to be used, definitely, but without the human being there, it cannot work. So, ladies and gentlemen, and all the participants, I thank you very much for having attended this very insightful, inspiring evening. Thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you, Dr. Winston. As we move to close our event today, I am going to be requesting all of you to fill in the form for your CCUs. It's not only going to help you fill in the form for the CCUs, but it's also an opportunity for you to give us feedback and allow us to keep connected. I'm going to ping the link in the text chat. Thank you, Jayashree. I'd also like to take this opportunity to announce our next session. In continuation with the ICW theme, our next session is titled Reimagine the Future for Ourselves, a space for networking and reflection. The session offers great opportunity for us coaches to connect, network, and take an inward journey to see what reimagining the future of coaching looks like for ourselves. The link to registration and block your calendar is coming up in the text chat as we speak. And as we come to the last section, a quick vote of thanks. I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, I'd also, I'm hoping my screen is being shared. I'm hoping you're filling in the forms for registering into the next session and the survey. We'd like to wrap up with a special thanks to all our speakers. Thank you for joining us today and giving us your perspective on what reimagining future looked like. The event would not have been possible without the support extended from both the incoming and the outgoing MC members. So thank you so much. We'd also like to thank our members who've been wholeheartedly participating very actively in the session and in the text chat. A special vote of thanks to our volunteers who've continued their support, leading right up to the session. We proudly call them as the Learning Squad for the ICF Bengaluru chapter. It comprises of Preeti Guruswamy, who has a positive and energetic style, which reflects in her passion of growing ambitious leaders. She works at all levels of values and beliefs to create transformation in one's life. We also have Venkatesh Prasad, who is very passionate about connecting with people and helping them look inwards to realize their potential. Finally, we have Pavni, who is very passionate about transforming emotional energy to manifest purpose and desires. With that vote of thanks, I'd like to conclude our session, lastly calling out ways in which you can stay connected with us. It will come up in our text chat shortly, our email ID, our LinkedIn page, and our Facebook page. Do stay connected, and I look forward to hosting you in several other sessions in the upcoming days. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Harry.